Which Spider-Man character made a sneaky appearance in WandaVision? How is cow's milk connected to Wanda's history? And did the show potentially introduce the Fantastic Four? Hi, I'm Clive, and you're watching OSSA Movies. House of M. WandaVision follows Wanda as she fabricates a new reality for herself to deal with grief. Fans of the comics know that storyline already, even if it wasn't originally told in the style of Golden Age television. While the Disney Plus series adopts a wacky sitcom style to tell the story, it seems like Marvel is laying the foundations for a future House of M adaptation. In the comics, Wanda suffers from a mind-bending psychotic break and ends up creating a new existence for herself. However, this has serious consequences for the universe's mutants and almost shatters the Earth as everyone knows it. In the end, it's discovered that she was being manipulated by Dr. Doom the entire time. That ain't too dissimilar from the events that transpire in the Disney Plus series, even though the big bads are different in the end. The show also teased the event. Remember that awkward dinner scene with the hearts in the first episode? You probably spotted the bottle of wine, which was called Maison du Mépris. This translates to House of Contempt. Maybe it isn't the exact name of the comic book event, but it's obviously an acknowledgement of the storyline. And if that comic arc is being referenced, that means the X-Men are too. Surely it's only a matter of time before Wolverine and the gang join the franchise. That being said, it's possible that the WandaVision creators were just referencing the comics to get fans talking. Then again, maybe it was a little teaser for things to come. Of course, WandaVision is littered with nods to Marvel history, which brings us to Spider-Man: Homecoming. The House of M reference wasn't the only reference to Marvel Comics in WandaVision's first episode. Eagle-eyed viewers spotted Abe Brown listed as the director of the show within the show. In the comics, Abe Brown is a martial artist who goes by the name Black Tiger. However, in the MCU, he's a character from Spider-Man: Homecoming, who served as one of Peter Parker's classmates from the Midtown School of Science and Technology. Given that WandaVision is canonical with Spider-Man: Homecoming, it's more likely that the MCU iteration of Abe was the version referenced in the show. He was one of the survivors of Thanos' snap after all, and it's possible that he grew up to become a television director. Of course, it's possible that both versions of Abe exist in the MCU, and the Easter egg in WandaVision could have been the show's way of reminding fans that the multiverse is going to play a big role in Phase 4. That being said, some references were just thrown in there as a shout out to the nerds in the back as well. Bova the cow. Now here's an amusing Easter egg that really milks Marvel's back catalog to great effect. Wanda and her brother Pietro's backstories have been rewritten and retold over and over again in the comics. However, in one of them, they were raised by a midwife called Bova, who just happened to be a talking cow. WandaVision's second episode opens with a Bewitched-styled animated sequence in which Vision flies through Westview on his way to work and Wanda goes shopping for groceries. One of the standout moments in the sequences depicts Wanda in a supermarket that sells a brand of milk called Bova's, clearly as a reference to the iconic cow. It's great that WandaVision paid tribute to Marvel's storied past and moments such as this one, but the show also hints at the future arrival of big-name characters who will play a huge role in the franchise's future. The Fantastic Four. Marvel fans have been dying to see Reed Richards, Sue Storm, Johnny Storm, and The Thing enter the MCU since its inception, and many of them hope to see the Fantastic Foursome debut in WandaVision. I mean, Kevin Feige confirmed that Spider-Man's John Watts will direct their first adventure in the MCU, so having them show up in WandaVision could have been the perfect way to introduce the heroes to the franchise. While they didn't make an appearance, in the end, the show dropped a subtle clue to suggest that their arrival is imminent. In the Halloween-themed episode, Monica revealed that she knew an aerospace engineer, which naturally led some fans to speculate that she was talking about Reed Richards. Both of them have a history in the comics, so it made sense that Reed would be the scientist in question. Unfortunately, the engineer in question was a character with no history in the Marvel library. That being said, it wasn't the only Fantastic Four Easter egg in WandaVision. In the Breaking the Fourth Wall episode, we see that Wanda's license plate number is 122822, which originally cropped up as a case file in the Marvel Avengers Alliance game. The file was in relation to a project called that Reed Richards was working on in collaboration with S.H.I.E.L.'s scientific staff. This seems like the type of Easter eggs that Marvel threw out there for the most die-hard fans to decipher. But there's a method behind Marvel's madness, no matter how confusing it can be. Ellis Avenue and Rolling Hill Drive. WandaVision also stepped outside of the Marvel canon to inform its storytelling, especially when designing the town of Westview. In the aforementioned Halloween episode, Wanda tells her kids not to venture past a street called Ellis Avenue. You see, that's where the force field that separates Westview from the rest of the world comes to an end. Plus, the residents who live in that part of town exist in a perpetual zombie-like state, as the witch hasn't given them a meaningful role in her new reality. Naturally, Wanda doesn't want her family to see that and come to the realization that their life is a lie. But what about the street name? The meaning behind the word Ellis is also twofold. For a start, it's clearly a nod to Warren Ellis, the legendary comics writer who's best known for titles such as Transmetropolitan and Global Frequency. He's also worked with Marvel in the past, contributing to X-Men, Moon Knight, and other stories to the biggest comic book publisher in the world. It makes sense why he'd get a mention. At the same time, the name could also be a reference to Ellis Island, which is famous for its immigration station. Technically, Wanda is an immigrant who spent some time in New York upon arriving in the United States. Perhaps the street's inclusion was a nod to that element of her past. But what about the street that's next to Ellis Avenue? In the same episode, there's a sign for a place called Rolling Hill Drive. This one has more theological connotations. In Greek mythology, Sisyphus cheated death twice until Zeus finally caught up with him and punished his butt. Sisyphus was ordered to roll a boulder up a hill for eternity, only for it to come tumbling down whenever he got near the top. Basically, this was Sisyphus' own personal hell. In WandaVision, the town of Westview is Wanda's personal paradise, but for the residents who've been used as pawns in her big lie, it's hell on earth. The signpost just so happens to appear when Vision discovers that everything isn't as it seems. So the allusion to hell, just as he discovers the cracks in the suburban paradise, was undoubtedly intentional. The movie references. Say what you will about Wanda enslaving the Westview townspeople and giving them new personalities, but at least they can go to the local theater and check out some awesome movies. The local multiplex always plays some excellent double bills, and they have some significance to the events happening at the time. One episode sees The Incredibles and Parent Trap playing. The Incredibles reference is obvious, as Wanda, Vision, and their offspring are another superhero family. The Parent Trap, meanwhile, is a film about discovering family. Considering that Wanda and Vision become parents out of the blue, it's understandable why the Parent Trap resonates with Wanda. Another episode features an advertisement for Kidnapped, which can be interpreted as Wanda admitting that she essentially took an entire town hostage for her own means. Oz the Great and Powerful also gets a mention. Of course, that's a fitting one since the Wizard of Oz movies deal with witches and magic, much like WandaVision does. In the Series 1 finale, the theater shows a fake movie called Tannhauser Gate. This is a clear homage to Ridley Scott's Blade Runner, a movie that features androids just like Vision. The Tannhauser Gate speech in Blade Runner sees Rutger Hauer's android character in a mournful mood as he grapples with his inner humanity. That sounds a lot like Vision's experience as well, so it's a fitting reference for sure. Blade Runner wasn't the only iconic sci-fi that the Disney Plus series mined for inspiration either. The Twilight Zone. WandaVision is downright weird and creepy at times. While the storylines involving trauma and black magic are scary in their own right, some of the most notable moments of horror are intangible. The series' first 2 black and white episodes present a seemingly normal world where something unsettling bubbles underneath the surface. Wanda and Vision also go out of their way to convince their neighbors that they're just regular people, which creates an unsettling feeling that they'll be exposed as different and ostracized as a result. This idea is reminiscent of the Twilight Zone's The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street episode, which involves aliens living in a small-town community. Some of WandaVision's stories and themes are of Rod Serling's school of thought, but the comparisons don't end there. In the Marvel Assembled docuseries on Disney+, Elisabeth Olsen explained that WandaVision adopted some of the Twilight Zone's camera techniques to create a similar feeling of dread and fear of the unknown. However, while WandaVision mined the horror and sci-fi shows of the past to create terror, it also turned to Golden Age comedies to give viewers many laughs. Countless sitcoms. WandaVision is a combination of a bunch of things. Superheroes, sci-fi, horror, you name it. More than anything, though, it's a love letter to sitcoms from the past. The first 2 episodes evoke the comedy shows of the 1960s, such as The Dick Van Dyke Show, Bewitched, and I Dream of Jeannie. In fact, did you know that the creators even had a meeting with Dick Van Dyke and picked his brain over how to replicate the style of his beloved show? This led to the cast and crew shooting an entire episode in front of a live studio audience, which marked a first first for Marvel. Some of the special effects were also a throwback to that era. Marvel has the technological capabilities to do anything, so the fact that they employ the techniques from yesteryear is pretty awesome. The creators also had fun with the 70s and 80s era of sitcoms, and this involved the cast sporting some wacky fashion and hairstyles. The Brady Bunch, Full House, Family Ties, and Growing Pains have all been named as significant inspirations on WandaVision, and the show wears those influences on its sleeves with pride. And who could forget the Halloween episode that was inspired by Malcolm in the Middle, all the way down to its punk rock theme song and single camera setup. Pietro and Wanda and Vision's kids were the stars of this episode, and they clearly based their characters on Francis, Malcolm, Reese, and Dewey from the early 2000s show. WandaVision didn't just riff on classic sitcoms either. Some of the later episodes borrowed from Modern Family and The Office, and it totally worked. The Disney Plus series even explores the spookier side of sitcom history when Agnes's big secret is revealed, giving her a credit sequence that takes cues from the Munsters and the Addams Family. All ground is covered here. One of the best things about WandaVision is the way in which it played with sitcom tropes to tell its story. For example, in the Halloween episode, Wanda mentioned that Pietro had been recast. From All in the Family to That 70s Show and many more, sitcoms have a history of recasting major characters. Then again, so do superhero movies. The Pietro in WandaVision is none other than Evan Peters' version from Fox's X-Men movies. Of course, Aaron Taylor Johnson portrayed the character in Captain America: The Winter Soldier and Avengers: Age of Ultron. So this was a nice nod to pop culture's history of having multiple people play the same character. But now it's time to hear from you. Did you spot any fun Easter eggs in WandaVision? Let us know in the comments below. And while you're here, don't forget to check out more WandaVision videos.